Assalamu alaikum, marhaban. My name is Helena, and today I'm going to be starting a series on the derived forms of Arabic verbs. So we're going to be looking at how we can form these different verb forms, the different patterns they take, and the different meanings that they also have. And I'm going to explain why this is useful. And also in this lesson, we're going to have a look at form 1 as well. So, as you may know, most Arabic verbs come from a trilateral root. So that means that there are 3 letters. There are some that have 4 letters, but they're not so common. So we're just mainly going to be focusing on the ones that have 3 letters at their root. And even though Arabic is a hard language to learn, it takes a lot of time, it is at least fairly logical once you've put that time in. So for example, this root letter system is really useful because it gives us lots of clues as to what different words mean without us necessarily having to look it up in the dictionary. And especially when we know the patterns and the forms, it becomes even easier to work out different meanings of different words. So for example, when we see a verb or some nouns, some adjectives that have kha, ra, and ja as their kind of like base letters, then we know that that word is going to be associated with leaving or exiting. So for example, أنا أخرج means I leave. أنا أخرج من البيت is like I'm coming out of the house. خروج is an exit, for example. Kata and ba, we learn kata and ba right at the beginning of our kind of Arabic journey. It's one of the first root forms or verbs that we learn. So for example, from that we get kitab, we get katib, which means writer, maktab, which means office. Very useful. We get lots and lots of root letters from that, root like forms from that, those root letters. And then finally we've got ta, ba, and kha. These are associated with cooking. Okay. So, for example, matbach is a kitchen, the place where you do your cooking. So, here is just sort of a brief overview of our different verb forms. There are 10 forms in total that as Arabic students we should try and learn. And a form just means so that the root, the 3-letter root, is following a certain pattern. So for example, form 1 verbs will follow particular patterns and they all will have those patterns in common. Form 2 verbs have their own patterns. Form 4 verbs have their own patterns. You can see from this form 4 verb, akhraja, it starts with an alif, and all form 4 verbs will have that. They'll have that alif at the beginning. Same with, for example, at the bottom we can see form 10. So form 10, it's got ist at the beginning. And all form 10 verbs will have that. But as we can also see, all of these forms, they still have kha, ra, and ja as their core root letters. It's just the meaning that, thanks to these other letters that are added, that changes slightly. So for example, kharaja, that's our basic form. So that's our form 1, and it just means to leave or to exit. However, when I double that middle letter, as we can see in form 2, where I've got a shadda on the r, I have kharaja. I have to pronounce that r twice. And that form 2 verbs often have this in common, where it's like you're making someone leave, you're making someone do something. Okay? Or it can intensify the meaning as well. So here, kharaja means like making someone leave. You're removing something or someone. Yeah, so it just changes that meaning, makes it a bit more intense or causative. And then if we look here, this one, form 5, a really useful verb to know, takharaja. So we've got that ta at the beginning. We've also doubled the ra as well. And you know, when you graduate from university, what are you really doing? You're just leaving the university. Yeah. And kharaja that's the core root for leaving. Yeah. And by only adding the ta, doubling the middle letter, we've got the concept of graduating. And again, if we look at form 10, got the ist at the beginning, but we've still got kharaja. And when we've studied what form 10 does, what kinds of meanings it has in common, it kind of becomes easier for us to work out that it can mean to conclude, to derive, to extract. It's obviously, these are quite sophisticated words. You wouldn't know them unless you're quite an advanced student. I didn't know them until I made this table and was doing research. But when you do know what form 10 means, it means that at least when you're reading, when you're listening to Arabic and you hear a word that's got ist at the beginning, and then if you know the core root, you can kind of start thinking, hang on, I know what form 10 does. I know what it looks like. I know how it changes the meaning. And I also know what the root letters mean. So therefore, I have a better chance of working it out. And that's one of the reasons why learning these forms is so useful. And then there are also other types of words that we can get from these forms, which I'm just going to come on to in a minute. One important misconception sometimes that people have is, as we can see, there are 10 forms. However, kharaja only has 6. And actually that's quite a lot for a particular verb, because not every verb is going to have all 10 forms. In fact, I'm not sure if there are any verbs that do exist in all 10 forms. Some of them may only exist in form 2. Not every verb form will have a form 1. Some may only exist in form 2. Some may exist in form 5. Some may exist in 6 different verb forms. Some may exist in 9. Yeah, but just because there are 10 verb forms doesn't mean that you can randomly make any verb that you want. It's just a pattern that is helpful to learn so that you can then start to expand your vocabulary. Okay, so if we then just zoom in on form 1, as we can see, we've got 3 different examples here. So amila can mean he worked, and it can also mean to work. Yeah, so in Arabic they don't really have an infinitive as such. They just use the past tense he form to kind of act as their infinitive as well. So amila, he worked or to work. Kharaja means he left or he came out, and darasa means he studied or to study. As we can see, this middle letter has a different vowel kind of radical on it, and that's one of the kind of issues we have with form 1, that sometimes that middle vowel radical can change, can be different. They don't all have the same kind of conjugation. They're quite irregular, form 1. So for example, amila, but then kharaja, we have to just learn that middle letter. We have to learn what vowel does it have. Will it have kasra or a dhamma? And then we have to also learn how that changes in the present tense. So for example, we have amila past tense, and then ya'amalu, so we've got sukoon, but then this kasra has changed to a fatha. Then we just have to learn that. So when we make a note of our new vocabulary in our vocab book or online, or whatever we do to learn Arabic, we have to make a note of how that vowel sound changes. Because as I said, form 1 is fairly irregular. It's just one of the things we have to learn. Same with kharaja, it becomes yakhruj. Then we have yadrus. So at least we can see we always have a sukoon on the first core letter, but then it's the second one where we have to learn what it has. Okay, and then just to give us an example, here I've chosen an example from the Quran. We have يَعْلَمُ مَا يَلِجُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَمَا يَخْرُجُ مِنْهَا. So we can see we've got 2 nice examples, actually 3 nice examples of present tense here in this ayah. And then again we've got a kharaja, yeah, so we've got a yakhruj, yeah, so he knows what's kind of coming out of the earth, yeah, so kharaja, a very common word in the Quran, so a good one to know. So when learning a new verb, we have to learn the root or past tense he form and the present tense he form, as I've just said. There are also 3 other things that we can learn, and these are the active participle, so that's called the ism al-fa'al, the masdar, or the passive participle, so the ism maf'ul. So I'm going to explain what each of these three things are so that we understand exactly why they're useful and how to use them. So first of all, the form one is our active participle. So if you're anything like me, you may find that forming the present tense in Arabic can be quite convoluted. There's lots of suffixes and prefixes that you have to remember. And to do that for all the different verb forms, I personally have always found quite difficult to remember. One way that you can get around this is just by using the active participle. It makes your speech and your writing a little more informal, but it is quite common still to do this in Arabic. So for example, daris and kharij, we have to have an alif, and then we have the middle letter, which has a kasra on it, and it will always follow that pattern. Our active participle is not irregular, it's always formed in this way. So for example, I can say ana kharij min al-bayt. That's a way of saying I'm leaving the house. I could say ana akhruj min al-bayt if I want to use the proper present tense. However, if I want to just make things a bit easier for myself personally, I could say ana kharij min al-bayt. Because I'm female and because these active participles act a little bit like adjectives, I would have to add ta marbuta to the end. So ana kharija min al-bayt. We can see that in our example here. هي دارسة العربية. She is studying Arabic. What this can also mean is the person who does the thing. So for example, in English, what we usually would do to make the person who does a particular verb is we add an ER. So for example, we have to bake is our infinitive. But if I want to just say, well, the person who bakes, I would say the baker. Yeah, if I want to say to make shoes, yeah, I could just change that to shoemaker. Yeah, so I normally add an ER. This is also where our active participle is useful in Arabic, because we can have, we can say a daris could kind of mean a student. It's not used that often, but it could be. But also we have words like, for example, fasik. So to corrupt, fasik is a corrupter. And then al-khaliq is the creator. So khalaqa means to create, and then al-khaliq is the creator. Yeah, so it's also the thing that does the verb as well. And then finally, not finally, secondly, we've got the gerund. So that is called the Masdar. So it took me a while personally in Arabic to learn what the Masdar is and why it is helpful. Once you know, it is genuinely very helpful because it immediately expands your vocabulary. So in English, we normally, the gerund will be the ing form, which creates a noun out of the verb. So for example, sitting, going, playing, like watching TV is bad for you, for example. Yeah, so we've made that noun out of the verb, and it's the same kind of for Arabic, except that we have to just learn different patterns for different forms. So for example, khuruj is one way in which we form the masdar for form 1, and that's the act of going out, can also just mean the exit. So for example, khuruj mamnu', as we can see, going out is forbidden from that picture. Ghurfa jalus. Jalasa means to sit, so jalus means sitting, and then ghurfa is room, so ghurfa jalus is going to be our sitting room. Darasa is studying. So for example, الدراسة اللغة العربية ممتعة. Of course, we all know it is. Like studying Arabic is very fun. And then also we can say here كُلُّ قَوْلًا شَدِيدًا, sorry. So like speaking. So here we've got the ayah start for the verb, and then قَوْلًا is another way of forming a masdar, so forming a noun out of that verb. And then our final thing that we need to learn is the ism ma'ful, and that's the passive participle. And this is very useful to know because it forms a lot of adjectives and also nouns as well. So for example, we've got kataba, which means to write, and then maktub, which means to be written. So you may hear some Arabs sometimes, they talk about destiny. They use al-maktub sometimes to talk about destiny. And then we've got here waqtuka maktub, like your time is written. Yeah. So that idea of everything being written from your life. Khalaqa means to lock or to close. Makhluk is like to be locked. Hamala is to carry. Mahmul is to be carried. And this is really nice actually when you piece it together. Hatif mahmul, we know that hatif is phone, and then mahmul is mobile. Yeah, so it's a phone that you can carry with you. Yeah, phone that's carried, this means the phone that's carried around, your mobile phone. So again, very logical in Arabic, how all of these things link together. So finally then, just to go over what form 1 looks like. These, we can see we've got the form number on the right hand side, and then we've got the different things that we need to learn when we learn a verb form. And it will always follow, so form 1 verbs, they follow this particular pattern. So we've got the past root form, so the huwa form, where we need to just know what the middle letter, we need to know what vowel it's going to have. Same for present, we need to learn that. But then for the active and passive participle, it follows this pattern. So we've got fa'il, yeah, so with an alif before the second letter, and then a kasra on the second letter. For passive participle, we've got sukoon on the first letter, and then dhamma on the middle letter. Sorry, just to make that clearer, sorry. So we have a mim with a fatha. The first letter, we've got sukoon. Second letter, we've got dhamma. Unfortunately though, for our Masdar, so our gerund form for form 1, there is no pattern. For all the other forms, like form 10, form 7, whatever, there are lots of, there's a pattern that you can follow, but for form 1, there isn't. Yeah, so the Masdar for form 1 verbs can always look different. So we just need to look it up every time. But fortunately for the other verb forms, it is easier. So I hope that's given you a general overview, an overview of how to form form 1 as well. And inshallah, I'll see you soon for form 2. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.